And what we'll have you do. Oh, there's a recording progress I have to actually say. And then after that introduction, what we'll have Megan do is she will be giving her presentation. The presentation should last between 25 and 30 minutes. Is that correct, Megan?
Yes.
About 25 to 30 minutes. During this time, we ask that you stay muted for anybody that's virtual, and anybody in person, we ask that you do not ask any questions at this time. We want to make sure that Megan can focus on her presentation. And at the end of this presentation, we will ask the audience in the crowd, an audience both virtually and in person, if they have any questions of Megan, and they will be allowed, any of you will be allowed to ask Megan any questions that are relevant to the research that she has performed, that she will be presenting on. After those questions are answered, and at that point in time, we will ask the participants that are virtual and the participants that are in person to leave the room. And then what will happen is the committee themselves, made up of myself, Dr. Nessler, Dr. Schubert, and Bruce Moore, will have a chance to ask Megan questions in private in the closed door session. At the completion of that, we will have Megan leave our session, and the committee will discuss any of the questions or any of the things or concerns we may have with the presentation. I also want to remind everybody that this is a thesis defense, but we don't really look at it as a defense. We look at it more as a celebration of our students' accomplishments. Our students work very hard on their research, and Megan has worked very hard on this research. So I want everybody to realize that this is not a defense in the sense that she has to defend anything, but more a celebration of the work that she's accomplished over the past 2 years at CSU San Marcos. All right, so let me provide you with an introduction to Megan herself. I was fortunate enough to meet Megan way back in 2018, and I had never had Megan in a class with me. But I was lucky enough to have Megan sign up for our study abroad to Costa Rica. And Megan came down to Costa Rica with us in 2018. It would have been May of 2018, and spent 2 weeks down there with us collecting data, looking at fluid loss in surfers in Costa Rica and during across a surf session. And during that time, I knew nothing about Megan, but as you can imagine, spending 2 weeks with 20 students, you learn, and living quite closely with these students, you learn quite a bit about these students. What I did find out about Megan during that time is she was a volleyball player. So I was intrigued with that because my daughters were also volleyball players. But I also found out she was a local girl from Carlsbad, and found out that she was. The best way to describe Megan's personality is delightful. She's a very nice person to have around, always enthusiastic, always the life of the party. And I will say the life of the party because she always was the life of the party in Costa Rica. But also when it came time to work and collect the data, she was a hard worker. She was highly focused, highly motivated, and did an excellent job down in Costa Rica along with the rest of the students in collecting data. So I was very impressed with what I saw with Megan when she was down there. Lucky enough that next fall, I had her in my 326 class. So I got to continue my relationship with Megan as a student and understand her as more of a student in a classroom setting. Once again, very impressed with her meticulousness and the hard work that she put into the class, the questions that she had, and the level of engagement she had in that class. She was also involved in a research study during that time with Natalie Skillern, looking at differences in temperature regulation in male and female surfers. And during that time, once again, just reemphasize the things that I saw down in Costa Rica, her really diligence in research and her interest and passion towards research. Megan then graduated in 2019, right? Yeah. Graduated in 2019 from our undergraduate program in kinesiology. We didn't really lose track of Megan. Megan kind of hung around CSU San Marcos for the next year. She was in the process of taking some classes. She was interested in potentially going to PT school. That was her first love and passion. But after doing research, I think we convinced her that maybe it would behoove her to continue in her research. And I think she also decided that maybe research was something she was interested in. So she came back after that gap year. She spent some time working as a TA in my 326 class, did an amazing job as a TA. And I know that we have several faculty members that have her as a TA right now, and hopefully they can attest with how well she does as a TA and how engaging she is with students. She came back 2 years ago, right when COVID started, basically, and was thrown into a situation like all of our students that was really hard to collect data, hard to be completely engaged with the program, be online and everything. But she did a tremendous job. She had some struggles. Obviously, all of our students had some struggles staying engaged on an online format, but she did a tremendous job in her classes. And she also did a really nice job over the course of the next year, this last year, collecting data on the study that she'll be presenting today. So with that, I just want to say that I'm very sad after this point in time that we will no longer have Megan as part of the CSU family. But I know there are great things ahead of her in her future, and I will let her now give her presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay. Awesome. I'm kind of miss you guys. Okay, so thank you, Sean, and thank you all for being here, whether it's in person or on Zoom. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come to my presentation. So my research study was the insulation characteristics of smoothskin neoprene and silicone coated neoprene in wetsuits. So I'm going to go ahead and start with just a brief overview of what I will be touching today in this presentation. So first, I'm going to give a little bit of background of the sport of surfing, as well as previous research that has been done on thermoregulation of surfers, as well as previous research that has been done on wetsuit materials, specifically neoprene. This will then lead me into the purpose of my study, the hypothesis and the methods, as well as the protocol, measurements, and equipment used for data collection and for data analysis. Next, I will discuss the results and findings from the data collected and discuss potential mechanisms and the importance of these findings. Finally, I will wrap everything up with a conclusion from this research study and discuss future research and also future wetsuit designs. So starting with a little bit of background of surfing. There's an estimated 37 million participants or people worldwide participating in the sport of surfing, whether that is competitively or recreationally. The sport of surfing is prevalent in various countries and areas with extreme environmental conditions. Surfing in cold climates can increase the risk for excessive loss of body heat when submerged in cold water. And surfers utilize wetsuits to increase insulation and prolong the amount of time that they can spend in the water without developing hypothermia. To increase insulation while surfing in cold climates, wetsuits are typically made of neoprene. And I will dive deeper into what neoprene material is. So since 1952, neoprene wetsuits have been worn by surfers and divers to protect the users from extreme cold water temperatures, to limit their risk for hypothermia. Neoprene is composed of a layer of synthetic polymer cells containing air or gas. The base material of neoprene is known as chloroprene foam, and it is not permeable to water, meaning that this material does not allow water to pass through it. So neoprene wetsuits are worn as an additional layer of thermal insulation and aids to reduce convective heat loss from the body. However, small amounts of water can enter into the suit through access points, including the neck cuff, the ankle cuffs, and the arm cuffs. And when this occurs, another form of insulation develops where the neoprene traps this layer of water close to the body. This layer of water is then heated up to near body temperature. So this mechanism is depicted here in this diagram, where the neoprene is acting as a barrier or a wall between this warm trapped layer of water and with the cold water from the external environment. Previous research has shown that even while wearing a 2mm neoprene wetsuit, there still is significant heat loss that occurs in the lower regions, including the lower legs and the lower torso, due to being in contact with cold water for the majority of the surf session. So these findings demonstrate that the current materials used in manufacturing of wetsuits are less than optimal, and alternative materials may provide increased insulation capacity to surfers. Recent research has investigated different techniques to alter neoprene to potentially improve insulation of wetsuits of surfers. So the first one was a study that was conducted where instead of injecting neoprene foam with air, they actually injected the neoprene foam with insulating noble gases, so specifically argon, xenon, and krypton. These noble gases did increase insulation and reduce convective heat loss overall, but unfortunately, this design did not work long term due to the noble gases leaking out of the neoprene foam. Another study that altered neoprene was slick, or commonly known as smoothskin neoprene. This smoothskin neoprene lacks the outer durable layer known as nylon, and heat and pressure is applied to the exterior surface, leaving it very shiny and slick, as you can see in this photo here. So anecdotally, people always thought that slick was warmer, but this study was conducted to actually investigate this perception. So skin temperature under the slick neoprene was compared to skin temperature under the jersey neoprene. And jersey material is the most common packaging material for neoprene. It is where nylon, which is a tough, lightweight synthetic rubber, is on the interior and exterior portion of the neoprene foam. So the neoprene foam is basically sandwiched in between two layers of nylon. And this study found that mean skin temperatures under slick were significantly higher compared to the jersey at the upper chest, upper back, and the lower back. These regions revealed different skin temperatures that were, these regions revealed different skin temperature differences, but on average, the skin temperature was about 1.5 degrees Celsius higher under the slick compared to the jersey. And these findings hypothesized that these differences were due to slick's ability to repel water and its greater heat absorption properties. The only flaw or limitation to this material is that it is not durable. And so although altering this neoprene did provide greater insulation properties, it is less than optimal due to its fragile exterior surface that can rip and tear easily. And so the question is, what's next? A new material needs to be developed to overcome these flaws in wetsuit design. So this will lead me into discussing a novel neoprene material known as silicone-coated neoprene. Silicone is a polymer used in sealants, adhesives, thermal insulation, electrical insulation, and more due to its ability to repel water, its low thermal conductivity, high thermal resistance, and its strength and durability. So this silicone is added on top of a standard foam wetsuit packaging. So from interior of the suit to exterior of the suit, we have a jersey nylon lining fabric, the chloroprene closed cell foam, a jersey nylon face fabric, and then finally the silicone, which is going to be on the exterior surface of the wetsuit. And this material was created to potentially mimic the insulation properties of smoothskin neoprene with added durability. And the silicone material is added to this wetsuit foam package by a simple process called silk screening. So during silk screening process, the fine silicone material is applied over top the nylon material. Once emulsion and exposure are complete, the silicone is coated on the exterior surface of the 3-layer packaging wetsuit material. And emulsion and exposure is simply just adding heat and pressure. So at this point, we are fairly confident that silicone-coated neoprene contains strength and durability properties. However, the insulation properties have not been investigated yet. And this will lead me to the purpose of my study. The purpose of the study was to determine if silicone-coated neoprene has the same insulation properties as that of the smoothskin neoprene. It was hypothesized that there would be no significant differences in skin temperature between silicone-coated neoprene and smoothskin neoprene while surfing. And next, for my methods and measurements. So 2 separate studies or experiments were carried out in this study. The first one, 20 male recreational surfers from San Diego North County beaches were recruited to surf for a minimum of 1 hour in the ocean. The other experiment was conducted here on campus at California State University of San Marcos, where 10 recreational male surfers were recruited to perform a 60-minute surf simulation protocol in an endless pool. Here is a timeline of the protocol for both experiments, and I will be going over them step by step for each experiment. So first, participants were informed of the specific protocol that they were going to be participating in, and they filled out an informed consent and a surfing and physical activity questionnaire. Some of the questions on the questionnaire included the participants' age, height, weight, the years that they had been surfing, their self-reported competency, their board length, as well as where they typically surf in North County, San Diego. Here is a table of the field experiment participants and the laboratory experiment participants. And there were no significant differences between subject characteristics between the field study and the laboratory study. Once the participants finished the informed consent and the questionnaire, they were instrumented with 10 eye button thermal sensors and fitted into a 2mm prototype wetsuit. The 10 thermistors were attached to the participants bilaterally at the upper chest, upper back, abdomen, lower back, and then also the lateral borders of the scapula, which you can kind of see on the sides. The 2 thermal sensors located on the lateral border of the scapula were testing the common jersey neoprene packaging that was also tested in the previous study mentioned before. And to ensure that the thermistors were directly under the materials being tested, palpation of the eye buttons were performed after instrumentation and after they were fitted into their wetsuit. These 2mm prototype wetsuits were constructed with chest and back panels of silicone coated neoprene and Smoothskin neoprene. The materials being tested were placed on contralateral sides for each size wetsuit to eliminate for potential impacts that southern sun exposure may have on radiant heat exposure. Okay. And next for the protocol. So the subjects either participated in surfing in the field for an hour or they performed the 60-minute protocol in the laboratory. For the field, subjects engaged in surfing for a minimum of 1 hour, which began once they entered the water and ended when they exited the water. Environmental conditions, including ambient air temperature and water temperature, were recorded from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration buoys located offshore during each surf sesh from surfline.com. And skin temperature data was collected at 1-minute intervals throughout the entirety of the surfing session. For the laboratory study, subjects completed a predetermined protocol in an endless pool. This 60-minute protocol consisted of resting, duck diving, and paddling against a 1.4 meters per second current at 1-minute intervals for each activity. This protocol was repeated for 1 hour, alternating the breaks or the rest breaks between sitting and laying on the surfboard. All procedures took place during the day to simulate a surf session in the field. Skin temperature data was collected at 1-minute intervals during the entirety of the surf simulation. And then here is just a quick video, I hope it plays, of a subject paddling against the 1.4 meters per second current. Once the surf session or the 60-minute surf simulation was completed, the eye buttons were removed and 2 perceptual questions were asked to each participant. Specifically, these questions were, which side of the wetsuit felt warmer or did it feel equal? And was one side of the wetsuit more comfortable than the other? And these perceptual, the answers were recorded in each of the participants' Excel sheet. And finally, the skin temperature data was downloaded from OneWire Viewer and copied into Excel for further analysis. So for the data analysis, both field and laboratory experiments followed the same statistical analysis. So like I said, these skin temperatures collected at 1-minute intervals were downloaded from OneWire Viewer and copied into an Excel sheet. This data was then imported into RStudio, and a two-way repeated measures ANOVA was used to compare wetsuit materials. First, comparing the Smoothskin to standard jersey, then the Silicone to standard jersey, and then finally the Smoothskin to Silicone. And these materials were compared on skin temperatures across time at each thermistor location. I took the 60 minutes and condensed it into 12 5-minute intervals, which is known as epochs. If any statistical significance was discovered from the ANOVA test, a post hoc Benjamin-Hochberg analysis was utilized to discover where the comparisons at each of the 12 time points for the thermistor locations were. And to the results. So here we have the environmental conditions collected at both the field and the laboratory experiments. The mean duration of surfing sessions in the field was 67.9 plus or minus 12.1 minutes. The mean duration of the surf protocol was obviously 60 minutes because it was a 60-minute protocol. There were no significant differences in mean water temperatures recorded in the fields and in the lab. However, mean air temperatures were significantly higher in the lab compared to the field study, which is what this asterisk is depicting here. Please take note of this difference as we go through potential mechanisms in the discussion. Okay, so first I wanted to see if the findings from the previous research could be replicated here in this study with the standard jersey neoprene and the Smoothskin neoprene. I also wanted to investigate if silicone coated neoprene had superior insulation properties to the standard jersey neoprene as well. And these materials were only tested at the upper back region because this was the easiest access to test the standard jersey neoprene. So for both the field and laboratory experiments, the skin temperature under the silicone coated neoprene and Smoothskin neoprene were significantly higher than the standard jersey neoprene. So here we can look at the graphs on the left are comparing the silicone versus jersey. The graphs on the right is Smoothskin versus jersey. And then the two top graphs are the field experiments. And then the two bottom graphs are the laboratory experiments. So for the field experiments, post hoc analysis revealed significantly higher skin temperatures under both the silicone and the Smoothskin material at time points 5 to 60 when compared to the jersey material. And then in the laboratory experiment, post hoc analysis revealed significantly higher skin temperatures under the silicone coated neoprene at time points 10 to 60 and the Smoothskin material time points 5 to 60 when compared to the jersey material. And so since these findings confirmed the previous data, since we found out that silicone does have superior insulation properties to jersey material, I wanted to compare silicone versus the Smoothskin material. So for the field experiment, here we have the 4 anatomical regions where the thermistors were placed under both of the materials. So we have the upper chest, upper back, abdomen, and the lower back. There was a main effect of wetsuit material at the abdomen. Post hoc analysis revealed a significantly higher skin temperature under the Smoothskin neoprene between time points 10 and 60 when compared to the silicone neoprene. For the laboratory experiment, there was a main effect of wetsuit material at the upper back, abdomen, and the lower back. Post hoc analysis revealed significantly higher skin temperature under the smooth skin material between time points 30 and 60 when compared to the silicone coated neoprene at the abdomen. It also revealed significantly higher skin temperatures under the silicone material between time points 10 and 60 when compared to the smooth skin material at the upper back. And this was in the laboratory. Here we have two tables representing the answers from the perceptual questions from the participants. So a total of 20 out of 30 reported having equal comfort between the silicone and the smooth skin neoprene materials. And a total of 21 out of 30 participants reported feeling equally as warm between the two materials. And finally, the discussion. So I will be going over the results found from the data of this study by going over each anatomical position. So I will first start with the upper chest, and then I will go to the lower back, the upper back, and then finally the abdomen. So starting at the upper chest, in both the field and laboratory experiment, there were no significant differences between smooth skin and silicone coated neoprene, which helps to support the hypothesis of this study. This suggests that smooth skin and silicone coated neoprene have similar insulation properties at the upper chest region. Next, looking at the lower back, and just like the upper chest, in both the field and laboratory experiments, there were no significant differences between the smooth skin neoprene and the silicone coated neoprene, which again helps to support the hypothesis of this study. This suggests that smooth skin and silicone coated neoprene have similar insulation properties at the lower back. Moving to the upper back. So the skin temperature under the silicone coated neoprene was significantly higher than the skin temperature under the smooth skin neoprene, but only in the laboratory study. And so we can speculate that this is due to greater sun exposure and greater heat exposure in the lab compared to the field experiment. As noted in the beginning of the results, the average ambient air temperature was significantly higher during the laboratory experiment compared to the field. In the previous study comparing smooth skin versus jersey, they saw significant differences in the daytime at the upper back under smooth skin, but when they did an experiment at nighttime with no sun exposure, those differences did not exist. And so these findings may suggest that silicone coated neoprene is more efficient at absorbing radiant heat from the sun than smooth skin neoprene. And then finally, focusing on the abdomen. In both the field and laboratory experiment, the skin temperature under the smooth skin neoprene was significantly higher than the skin temperature under the silicone coated neoprene. The abdomen is a unique location compared to the three that I have just described. The abdomen is in constant interaction with the water and has rare sun exposure, so maybe these variables are participating in these differences. Without having radiant heat exposure and while being constantly submerged in water, smooth skin seems to be the superior when compared to silicone coated neoprene at this region. However, in previous research, smooth skin neoprene and jersey neoprene were equally as warm at the abdomen. And since jersey material is more durable than smooth skin, jersey would be the superior material to have at the abdomen region. Another potential mechanism is that these two materials may expand and compress differently. Therefore, the contact of these two materials with the skin may be different at the abdomen. For instance, when someone is sitting on their board, the smooth skin may be able to stay in close contact with the skin on the abdomen and stay tighter, where the silicone may bunch up and allow cold water to rush through, but this is just a speculation. So based on this current study, silicone coated neoprene would be beneficial to use at most regions in the torso. However, this material would not be effective in the abdomen of wetsuits due to the colder skin temperatures observed from this study. These findings suggest that this is how a wetsuit should be constructed and designed. Specifically, the standard jersey material should be placed at the abdomen, and the silicone-coated neoprene should be placed at areas exposed to the sun. So for example, the shoulders, the upper back, the chest, the mid-back, and the low back. Based on the data found from the abdomen, it would not be beneficial to have silicone-coated neoprene in the abdomen nor in the lower legs because of prolonged water exposure. Wetsuit manufacturers should utilize the findings from the study to create a functional, warm, and long-lasting wetsuit for surfers. Future research could look at understanding the mechanisms of why there were differences in the abdomen, either investigating the environmental conditions or try to investigate if compression properties of these materials is what is driving these differences. Future research could also look at the mechanisms driving differences at the upper back in the laboratory and if it was actually due to radiant heat exposure. So now we know for the first time, a more durable material, silicone-coated neoprene, is equally as warm and effective as smoothskin neoprene in regions that have intermittent interactions with water and high exposure to radiant heat from the sun. And really quickly, I would like to thank Sean Newcomer for not only being an incredible academic advisor, but someone who I can look up to in all aspects of life. Thank you for your guidance and support the last 5 years and being emotionally and mentally supportive through this process. I would also like to thank Jeff Nessler, Matt Schubert, Bruce Moore, and Matt Becker for always being open to questions and being available to help me with this study. I have learned an immense amount of knowledge from every single one of you. A big thank you to Fall 2021 Kinesiology 496 research class for helping me collect data. And finally, a thank you to my family, friends, boyfriend, and my dog, Millie, for constantly pushing me to be the best I can be. I could not have done this without your support. I wanted to thank you all for being here today, and I would like to open the floor for any questions.
Okay. I guess I have to get back up.
Okay.
So, okay, so thanks, Ben. Great job. And we'll now open this up for this thesis defense up for questions. Dr. Schubert will be, you can either ask your questions if you're virtual by typing it in, or you can actually just unmute yourself and ask a question. Dr. Schubert will be monitoring the questions that come up virtually. And then anybody in the room, just raise your hand and we can also answer this, or not we. Megan can answer those questions. I will not be answering any questions. Okay.
I wish.
We have a question from Ron Dunn.
Well, hi. I was wondering if you could speculate on the heat generation differences between the different body parts and how that might affect the skin thermistor recordings.
Good question. The only thing I can speculate is looking at previous data on thermoregulation, and not only like how much heat the body produces, but mostly the convective heat loss from certain areas of the body while surfing. That's, yeah. I hope that answered your question well enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
What about cost and making these wetsuits? Like, do you know anything about? No.
Not too sure about that, but I could look into that for you. Yes.
Okay, so when I hear the word durable, lots of things come to mind. So from a consumer standpoint, what does durable mean in terms of how this can have impact then on manufacturers and things? Because I don't even know how long a regular wetsuit lasts. So
yeah, okay. So with if we're comparing it to like the Smoothskin material, it's like subjective to abrasion. So even like a fingernail cut can cut the smooth skin. So it's like very fragile. And so just with that added durability, you won't be able to cut it or rip it, or if it's, you know, sitting on something in your car or your garage that's sharp, it won't puncture through. Whereas like the smooth skin, it can easily be punctured by who knows what, a lot, right?
However much it costs them. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll ask a question. Looking at the two materials, can you tell which one was which?
Oh, no,
So you didn't know which one was silicone, which one was Smoothskin?
no. So it was a double blind study. I forgot to mention that. It was double blind study. I did not know which material was what, and the participants didn't know either. Yeah. And I speculated myself, like maybe which one was what, but I was totally wrong when I actually found out.
Ask another question. So you've got durability and temperature,
Mhm.
film regulation. What about performance? So is it stretchy or is it maybe heavier? Are there things that could impact performance?
So the only data that I collected for that was maybe the comfort. I did ask when I asked the participants which side was more comfortable. I did ask if one was maybe more easier to paddle in, because like sometimes they didn't understand like what comfortable meant, because it was a new wetsuit. So of course it was comfortable because it was new. But I was trying to ask them more like, when you were paddling, you know, were you able to get like full range of motion in your arms? And so that's the only perceptual data I got from this study, but previous studies could potentially look at the like maybe even the compression expansion qualities with the comfortability for surfers too.
I have a question, but I don't know if there's more online questions, so I want to see if Matt Schubert has anyone else.
We just had a question come in, and it is, how thick were the wetsuits?
2 millimeter.
Thank you.
I just had a question about kind of a time of day during the studies, like a
Yeah.
lot of your findings had to do with radiant heat from the sun.
Yeah.
And so were the field studies daytime or afternoon, and lab studies afternoon, morning?
They kind of were both morning and afternoon. I did run statistical tests on it, and there were no significant differences between the time of day. So I did speculate in my own head that maybe that was something that was driving the differences. But then when I ran the tests, there were no significant differences. So they must have been all around the same time, probably like late morning in the afternoon.
Mhm. One thing that's traditionally with smooth skin is that it's significantly warmer when it's windy. And so I'm wondering if you were in any conditions where it was windy, and I'd imagine the lab was not windy.
I did record wind speed at the beach and the laboratory, but I did not run statistical tests on that, but I can do that and get back to you.
Cool.
Thanks, Bruce.
Mhm.
May I ask if you're going to investigate the lower legs in terms of skin temperature effects of the different materials?
I don't think it would be very reliable to do that with the silicone coated, only from seeing what we found in this study with the insulation properties at the abdomen. I would maybe look at smooth skin at the lower legs, because it was significantly higher than the silicone at the abdomen. So maybe it also would, you could speculate that you would find those same differences at the lower legs. But I don't think silicone would be a superior material to put at the lower legs.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Megan, it's Natalie here. I have a quick question.
Hi, Natalie.
Hey, I might have missed it, but did you record relative humidity as well?
I did not.
Do you believe that since at the laboratory, perhaps maybe it was a bit drier or less humid, would than per se the beach? Would you think that there might be any impact on at least the areas that interact least with water, of how that material might, I don't know, just act differently in terms of wicking properties or just how
Yeah.
it might dry?
That's a good question. I definitely would speculate that there would be some differences with humidity, obviously because Cal State is inland a little bit more. So I feel like it is a little bit maybe more drier than the ocean where it maybe is more humid. So yeah, that is a great question. I guess I could speculate that that wouldn't impact maybe the mechanisms of what it drives the differences. But I'll have to keep that in mind for future research.
Sounds good, thanks.
Yes.
So I'm not a surfer, so I'm just gonna say I'm completely ignorant. And kind of following up the performance question a little bit, you looked at, what I would call maybe more core temperatures, with the torso and abdomen.
Right.
So I'm wondering, when I get cold, my extremities get cold first.
Yeah.
And so is that what surfers report? Because I would think like if your arms get cold, that could affect paddling.
Yeah.
So how would you extend these results? Like, or would they extend to the arms, like keeping warm to help performance, like arms or legs?
Yeah, so I don't know if I can click back all the way, but the previous research that was looking at the thermoregulation of surfers where there was, this might take forever. This one. With this, so basically the heat basically, or the blood shunts to the core to save like the vital organs.
Okay.
And so you obviously are going to have significant heat loss in the legs and the arms. Again, I don't think silicone coated neoprene would be beneficial at the lower legs because they're submerged in the cold water and they lack sun exposure. But in the arms and the forearms and with the shoulders, I do feel like with the sun exposure with silicone coated neoprene, I feel like it would increase insulation in the arm extremities.
So okay, that's a great answer, thank you.
Mhm.
So do people like usually get out of the water because they get cold, or like because they aren't performing or paddling as well, or?
I would speculate that, yeah, like if surfers are feeling cold and not performing very well. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, I got two questions. Sensor placement. What was the rationale for the sensor placement? Was it based on previous studies of, anyways, I didn't answer that.
Okay, yeah. So it was based on previous studies, and then it was also based on how the wetsuit that I used was constructed. So it was just the chest and the back panels that were constructed of the materials. And they were basically placed, half and half on the right and the left side. So that was kind of the rationale for the placements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, for your post hoc analysis, you used the Benjamin Hochberg analysis.
Yes.
I'm just curious, why did you pick that post hoc analysis in particular?
I was going to use the Bonferroni, but the Benjamin E. Hochberg, it helps with, let's see, I have it here.
All right. Good.
I am. I'm sorry. It's since I was dealing with multiple tests and not just one single test, it was more beneficial to use the Benjamin Hochberg than the Bonferroni, if that clears it up.
Okay.
Any other questions? Matt, is there any questions online?
No, sir. I think when Deanna went to ask her question, everybody wanted a preemptor.
All right. So once again, thank you all for attending, and once again, join me in congratulating Megan. Such a nice job presenting. What we'll ask to do is everybody other than the committee, please leave the online whatever Zoom meeting, and then the rest of you will have to ask you to leave the room. Stick around to hear what the final results are, or you can
Thanks for
wait to
coming.
hear.
Woo, go Megan.
Natalie, Tony, or this is not.
Your introduction was wasted.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
It was like 7 or 8.
It was 5 minutes. I looked at the clock. 5 minutes.
We're gonna have to put a time.
Can't help it. I'm proud.
Seemed
It
like
was
it was longer
nice.
than that.
5 minutes. I looked at it. It's 5 minutes. If you took the actual introduction of Megan, not all the other logistical stuff that the graduate coordinator should have been doing.